The Olympics, a time-honored event of athletics and physical strength. Competitors from all over the world met to test their abilities and skills in the sports they love. The world watches in amazement and awe as athletes fulfill their hopes and dreams, as they have since ancient times. Or have they? With the 2016 Rio Olympics over, the 2018 Pyeongchang Winter Games still in construction, and Ryan Lochte's fate still unknown as of this recording, many may not know of the rich history of the Olympics. It all started, possibly, around 776 BC. The Olympic Games were held every 4 years in Olympia, Greece, and was orchestrated in honor of Zeus, the king of Greek gods. In order to please the almighty Zeus, the games consisted of a wide selection of events such as foot racing, and a lot more foot racing for 68 years, until events such as wrestling, chariot and horse riding, discus, and javelin, as well as boxing and military competitions were introduced. One event even had competitors run a race in full combat armor and carrying shields. Tough. The Olympics lasted for centuries, growing in size and popularity. Soon, dozens of city-states sent their athletes to compete in the Olympic Games, such as Athens, Sparta, and Olympia. But over time, as the Roman Empire grew in size and power, and Christianity took hold over Europe, the stories of the Olympic Games became legends, and the legends became myths. In 393 AD, Theodosius I, the Roman Empire, and a strong advocate for Christianity, banned all pagan cults and practices in the empire in an attempt to spread the religion. This included the Olympic Games because the Olympic Games, at its heart, was a religious event. The Olympic Games were shut down, ending at least a millennia of fierce physical conditions and heroic entertainment, and closing a grand chapter in the history of sports. The Olympic Games faded from the eye of the public for over 1,500 years, and were only discussed by European historians and scholars. During the time in between, many different cultures had their own form of the games, ranging from the ancient gladiator fights of Rome to community sports events whose only relationship to the games of old was a title, the Olympics. But nothing could challenge the fame of the original Olympic Games. The prowessness of the games would only be seen again in 1894, when the historian Pierre de Coubertin founded an Olympic committee and began the tradition that would last more than a century. Pierre, considered the father of the modern Olympics, was a French historian with a fascination for Greek culture. He presented the concept of the revival of the Games to fellow scholars, and with their support created the International Olympic Committee, the IOC, who is the governing body over the Olympics. They choose what sports to include, what sports to exclude, who gets to participate, and who gets advertising. The first Olympic Games were held in 1896 in Athens, Greece. Of course, what else in Athens, Greece, to honor the precursors that defined the Games. Only 14 nations joined in the competition, with 241 athletes competing for gold in 43 events. Because this was the world's first Olympic Games, it was largely left open to the International Olympic Committee to organize it and set it for an example for future games. Many events were loosely organized, with no modern stadiums and infrastructure for athletes and spectators alike. The events that needed stadiums were housed in the amphitheaters and coliseums of old Greece, many which hosted the ancient Olympic Games over a millennia ago. The events that did not need stadiums were, quite literally, hosted in the streets. The marathon race, a classic, was to follow in the path of its historic father, and would be run from the city of Marathon all the way back to Athens, totaling around 25 miles. 17 runners would enter the race. 4 were professionals from Australia, the United States, France, and Hungary, while the rest were Greek. Why so many Greek runners, one may ask? It was their race, of course. Their ancestors had created this event out of survival, and now they had the chance to partake in it. Hundreds of Greeks from throughout the nation ran in the trials, and some even died trying. That's a lot of effort. No one had ever tried this before, for the marathon hadn't been run since historic times, so no one really knew what to expect. As the race begun, the Greeks were viewed as the underdog, because even though they outranked other nations by their marathon team's sheer size, they lacked tremendously in experience. Most of their team was made up mainly of the common civilians and not world-known superstars, or, superstars of the time. For some runners, it was their first time being on a track during the trials. But now, the Greek team was able to show off its strength. Many of their runners could not complete the race, and because of this, the impossible happened. A Greek was able to win the race. His name was Spyros Lewis, and he completed with a time of 2 hours, 58 minutes, and 50 seconds, well ahead of his qualification time and his opponents. The nation was thrown into celebration, and for the most part, didn't care about the rest of the games. They had won the marathon. Besides the marathon, the Greeks were very successful at the first Olympic Games, scoring a total of 10 gold medals, 15 silver medals, and 19 bronze medals. The United States placed first in the number of gold medals, just narrowly inching out Greece with 11 gold medals. But Greece beat everyone else out with a total number of 46 medals. The country with the second most medals was, not surprisingly, the United States, but with only a mere 20 medals in total. With the 1896 Athens Olympic Games coming to a glorious end, Pierre de Coubertin and the International Olympic Committee looked forward into the rising century, now excited to finding out where their tournament of strength and wit would take them and the world.